This place looks nice, doesn't it? Too bad that's not what I forced myself to be thrown into. Snowy plains are what I will spend 25 days in. A single biome of wintry isolation. And right before I went to the village, I found an igloo. Regardless, I cured him and named him Stinky. Yeah, to make some wood tools and get some coal by the igloo. I'd end the night by starting a mine by the edge of my village. Day 2 would start off with a whole lot of nothing. I found a cave. I dealt with the spawner and bullied the locals, but found some diamonds, and before I went to explore the rest of the cave, I heard that cursed baby zombie sound. And not one of them, not two, but three of those monsters, those little creatures. The rest of the night would involve me getting chased. It would take me quite some time to realize I could just sleep. Day 3, I head back into the cave, not really expecting much, and I was almost always in combat down there. I would go deeper into the cave, finding more and more diamonds and other ores. Day 4, I'd borrow a furnace from a neighbor and would smelt my iron, and so far I ended up with a total of 13 diamonds. I made a diamond pick and sword. It was a nothing burger in the morning. But by night, I was back in the cave in the upper parts, getting coal and iron. Day 5, at some point it did change to day 5. After dealing with the basement dwellers, I'd go deeper and find many ores, and mainly iron and a decent amount of diamonds. I'd end up with 17 diamonds from that run, and would make full diamond armor, without the helmet, and watch the sunset. Day 6 would begin my long, random travel to explore the land around and find an ideal place for my Day 25 challenge. The nearest village was okay, but had some emeralds and food, which, by that point, was actually getting pretty hard to come around. I'd find a village past the lake that looked cool from the distance, but when I got close, I saw it was abandoned and it was full of zombie villagers. I tried to fight them, but knew I needed more food, so I backed off for now and went to a third village I found to sleep the night. The random exploration would continue once more. Day 8, I was still exploring. I would find a coastline, had a really, really nice mountain range, and I found a village, and would loot it, and then explored the mountain range for a bit, and really found the perfect spot for my project. I also found another village, and yeah, they really aren't rare anymore, but regardless, I would remember and have a brain again that boats and ice go really well together for transport, and we get back to that coastal village. Day 9, yeah, I just kind of stared at the furnace and baked potatoes, and then this small creature kept bothering me. No, I'm not your father, go away. But I will name him Twimsicle Pinkleberry. Then I would take a boat ride and ride the coast and fall asleep in one of the villages by the coast. Day 10, I'd stay in that same village I had just went to, borrowing from the locals. I'd roam the mountains and find more villages to loot, but mostly the same over and over again, and really did run into some really, really nice views. Near night time, I would head to the lower villages, the lower ground, and would come closer to my village, and would have some interesting interactions with the locals. Day 11, I took a boat on the ice river, which led me straight back to the zombie village, and I looted the bookshelves for my enchanting room, and the rest of the day I spent, trying to get a good enchantment. The villager I cured, or Stinky, in the igloo by my village. And I got a few, but settled with fortune. Don't ask me why, I was tired, alright? And I would end the day setting up the framework for the enchanting room. Days 12 to 13. I would finish the enchanting room and make an anvil to give my fortune to one of my picks. With the new pick, I went back to the cave and went deeper into the mine. But I did find a ruined nether portal and this really cool but odd lake or water bed, and would use it as a way to get down deeper into the caves. And I found a few diamonds and would end up dealing with those wild locals down there. Day 13 happened at some point here while I was in the cave, but I have no clue. Sorry. Day 14, I had a plan for the farm, and it would help me get a stable flow of food and trade with the villagers. I tried making the framework, but would struggle for a bit, but would end up with at least a frame for the farm itself, if not the building. And right before sunset, I worked on the other farm and made sure both had water spots that would not turn into ice. Day 15, I made some bone meal for the normal village and would get the farms to give me enough crops so I could actually feed the bigger farms, and would start to make the framework for the build. But during it, one of the farmers tried putting their nasty arms on my crops, and regardless, I spent the rest of the day getting wood Day 16, I finished the walls, kind of, and would now get the roofing done, and would come up with a pretty neat pattern. I liked it, but that's pretty much it. Day 17, I spent getting more wood. Yay. But if it wasn't obvious by now, I'm a bug rock player, and still learning Java. I learned how to quick craft. Crazy, right? Yeah, I'm sorry. You had to watch someone like me? Someone with this small of a brain I'm sorry you have to watch this. I did finish the roofing though, and it did turn out really nice. I kind of just stared at it for a little bit, observing my work. Day 18, the crops would be ready for the taking and trading, in which I did and would trade and make some decent profits, but mainly, for now, it was trying to get the farmers to level up. At the end of the day, I upgraded my enchanting room a bit, mainly just one bookshelf, and would enchant my armor. I got some pretty decent boots, but the leggings were okay, and the chest plate had an awful enchantment. So I just went with a pick in return. Day 19, I'd light the roof from the farmhouse since there was mobs spawning on top of there. It's annoying. And would spend most of the day getting wood for the project for day 25. And went back to the caves for more diamonds. Because yes. Day 20 would start off in the caves, wrapping up last minute things and being mean to the locals. I'd go back above ground and would clear the crops again for more trading, and luckily got golden carrots, as you can see in this very, very interesting celebration. Day 21, I wanted to enchant my chest piece, but still got a horrendous enchantment, so I went with a sword and my axe. The rest of the day was spent gathering more and more wood and replanting trees. Day 22, still getting wood. Then some guy wanted a hug. And then I knew I was running out of time, so I left my village, unfortunately, and head back to the spot I wanted to build my day 25 project, and would steal the bed from one of the other villages to help for my project. I started to make the framework for one of the builds, or the first home, and would realize by now I might not have enough materials for any of this. I'd get pretty far for the first home and almost finish it, and by sunrise would be practically done. Day 23, I would finish that small home and fully work on the smaller home or outhouse, or either way, it would become useful later and would finish it relatively fast. Once I was done with the small outhouse, I went to work on the barn-like home, or the long home, I'll call it for now. And it would take a bit more brain use, but not really, and would get pretty far. However, I would realize by this point I left my diamond shovel back at home. So because of that, I turned the outhouse into a mine and would hope for a cave, at least. If not that, then it's just some iron, which I found a really odd cave system, or more like a ravine going down, and it would give me more than enough of what I needed. Day 24 was spent making a smelter. Not struggling, because I have a big brain. And I did make one, and also made a campfire to really add to the feel of the area so far. The snow, that had been going on for quite some time now, finally stopped. Part of me did get used to it though. It kind of felt weird with it not being there anymore. Regardless, the home, or the long home, was done, and had a really nice roofing. I felt proud. Not like it was just me copying and pasting my roof style. Anyway, it felt as it fit in my mind. I also bullied the locals and made one of them fall into a hole. They deserved it. I half knew when I started working on the last home, or the main home, I want it to be, I couldn't get it done in time and would run out of materials or something else, and what made it worse was I struggled for a bit on doing the math and knowing what I actually was supposed to do. Day 25, after some tweaking, I had the first set of walls done for the main home and ran out of materials, literally right as the final few blocks, so I at least worked on the path between all the homes to make the area feel a bit nicer and more finished. If one home isn't done, at least everything else around it is. I did panic quite a bit and tried to get as much wood as I could, but I ran out of time and night would come pretty quickly. I hoped to get a little bit more wood, but then I heard the sound of phantoms and just knew it was going to be too much of a hassle, and I knew by that point I lost. But by this point, had I not explained, which I haven't, that this is actually a reference to a Red Dead Redemption 2 camp, or the first camp we experienced, Camp Culture. And I also wanted to make a grave for whom I will not say who it is for. Regardless, me in the grave watch the sunrise. Catharsis is a feeling that can be seen in a few ways, yet it's something that truly can, and if not is, one of the worst feelings a human can need or experience. This run being in a tundra such as snow plains, no matter how beautiful it is, no matter how much I genuinely enjoy biomes like this, even in real life, part of it felt so empty and alone. Maybe it was the lack of normal mobs like sheep or pigs, or how it felt like triple the amount of hostile mobs, and that the combat truly never ended up there. Something I noticed that in this run was I spent at least a quarter of my total time underground, and I'm not surprised by that. It's not out of the picture that the land above feels so barren and empty, no matter how much it's naturally beautiful and I enjoy it. Caves full of mobs or not, at least those are predictable and something I understand. The barren snow plains, not as much. This run wasn't just another excuse to play in the snow plains. It was to understand what it takes to feel catharsis and how damaging that could be when we want something more, when in reality that something will never come. And even if it did, it's never enough.